So, Crystal, what do you like about reading?
I like the awesome community that is built around sharing a good book. And what do you like about reading?
I like cracking the spine for the first time. Just like bending it like that.
You're supposed to buy the book first.
I'm banned from chapters.
You are.
Everybody, welcome to the Goldilocks and the Three Cares podcast. The podcast where we take a look at a direct published work and look at what's too hot, what's too cold, and what's just right. I'm Andrew.
And I'm Crystal.
What did we read this week, Crystal?
This week we read Through the Door, which is book 1 in the Thin Veil series by Jodi McIsaac.
And why did we choose this particular book?
This book, it's actually not a request this week.
Shocking.
I know, we've had so many. I actually was able to participate in a workshop Jodi did at the Surrey International Writers Conference last year. And it was basically a conference on how to self-publish your novel. So I took a lot of information from her course or her workshop and sort of applied it to my book. One of the points that Jodi made repeatedly was the number one thing you need to do is make sure that the work that you're producing is your best possible work that you can send out into the world at that time. So I was just curious to see what that meant for her.
And let's find out. So tell us a little bit about Through the Door. What's it about?
It is about a woman named Cedar who has a daughter with a man who mysteriously disappeared 6 years ago, which is around the time when she found out she was pregnant as well. Mm-hmm. She discovers that her daughter has a power to visualize a place, open a door, and that place is where that room used to be, or it's on the other side of the door.
So this book is kind of a mix of genres then?
Yes. So there's, not to spoil anything, but there is some Celtic mythology that comes into play. And basically Cedar's daughter goes missing and she needs to find her.
So what was too hot with the book? What was it just a little bit too much of?
I really enjoyed the novel, so it was a little hard for me to find points for too hot and too cold.
So you're saying Jodi accomplished what she set out to do.
We've already answered the question.
Write a good book.
We don't have to finish this now.
2 minutes into it, we're
turn
done.
Turn it off. Turn it off.
But if you don't want to turn it off, what was too hot?
There was one thing that sort of brought a question to my mind that I wanted her to answer, and it was never really answered until a plot point was revealed. I felt like there were too many characters.
What do you mean by that?
When Cedar gets introduced to this Celtic world, we're then introduced to several characters, and I can't remember the exact amount, but it's, between 6 to 8.
It's a number.
It's a number, and I found it a little overwhelming. But my question, or the question in my mind that kept coming up was, why do they need to travel in such a large group?
Yeah.
If we're looking for her daughter, me as a mother, I would say, screw you, tell me where to go, I'm going there right now.
Army of one.
Why do we need all these people?
Exactly.
And we find out, and it's sort of in the middle of the book, that we're glad that we have all these characters because there's a big fight scene.
Yeah.
And it's awesome, and I loved it. I just felt like we had that number of people leading up to just this fight scene, and then they disappear again after that.
So you're saying that the characters were around, there was this large number of characters, and they were really there because the author knew they needed to be there because she had something cool in mind at a certain point, but the reader, through the main character, never really gets informed as to why there's a group.
Right. It would be my question of, these guys are slowing me down. I need to cut these ties and just
Do you really need to be here right now?
Excuse me, sir.
I get that all the time. It's okay. Get the giggles out.
So, yes. Now I've lost my train of thought because I'm just picturing you like in a library.
Getting walked out of the Apple store again.
So regardless of whether she intended that or not, that question was burning just in my mind, and I wanted Cedar to ask.
Yeah.
And that never happened. And so when I saw that there was this big fight scene, it was an aha moment, but then it felt like a we were just we wanted this to happen, so we're plopping the characters in as opposed to having the plot evolve around these characters.
And what was too cold?
Finn is our love interest.
Mr. I'm going out for cigarettes and milk and I'll be back in 6 years, but I really opened up a bait shop in Florida.
Well, yes.
Yes.
That guy. So you've already sort of brought up the point, or how I feel about him.
Yeah. I think how every woman would feel about him.
I felt that Cedar forgave him too quickly.
What do you mean by that?
Or I was underwhelmed by the scene where she decides that, you know what, the past is in the past. I'm going to forgive you. Mm-hmm. I didn't feel like Finn had done enough to prove that he was going to stick around and that he wasn't just back because he needed to fix this problem.
Yeah.
What I would have preferred, and this is a personal preference, is that Cedar would have just stood her ground with him. She can still be in love with him. Fine. Part of her can be in love with him. Mm-hmm. But I would rather have her be just still kind of pissed off at him for more of the book than she is.
For two reasons. I think you've brought up a good point. I mean, the first reason is when you close that conflict, it's now more difficult to reopen it later. Mm-hmm. And it seems like, that she would use that as, well, if you wanted to make up 6 or 7 years of being gone and make that up to me, you can kind of do that by rescuing our daughter who's disappeared.
Right. And he does say that at certain points, but I would have preferred forgiveness at the end.
Yeah.
And I don't want to give away any spoilers, but there is a part at the end where when your mortality comes into question, you then do things that you really have wanted to do the entire time. And to me, that would have been a perfect moment because he had been with her through the entire book, thereby proving that, yes, I'm here to save our daughter. As opposed to, well, it's halftime and I really like the commercials
exactly.
and that sort of thing.
So the other thing that I've learned is that you hold a grudge and in order for someone to make up the grudge that you hold, they have to die.
Oh.
Sometimes by themselves and sometimes at the hands of others.
Thus proving their love, Andrew. What kind of world would it be if that didn't happen?
So what did Jodi get just right?
Again, as I said at the beginning, I really enjoyed the book. It was a fantastic debut novel. Mm-hmm.
She accomplished her goal.
Yes. I was engaged. I thought that what she got just right was the relationship with her daughter, in that her entire focus for the whole book, except for a little blip, but for the whole book is, I need to get my daughter. Which is exactly what it would be. Exactly. Yeah. And I felt that was very real. I felt that her writing, at least for me, came alive on the page. There's this one chapter where her mother is... This is Cedar's mother. Cedar's mother. Yes. Cedar's mother is thinking on the past. And it's sort of a different style of writing. It's almost like she's taking the Celtic mythology and writing Cedar's mother's history, and the writing takes on a different style. But I absolutely love that chapter. I was sold. I didn't like Cedar's mother, and then I grew to understand her, and I was sold on the book in that chapter. That was Through the Door, which is book 1 in the Thin Veil series by Jodi McIsaac. Crystal, who do you recommend reads this book? I think this book is fantastic for adult women. Jodi did say that she... So it skews a little older. Yes, older than young adult. Jodi did say that she wanted to write a book that had that romance element, but that wasn't the whole young adult, oh, I love him. No, sorry, I don't love him anymore. So I thought she did a fantastic job. So definitely it's for older women who enjoy a good romance with mythology. And if you like the podcast, everybody, do subscribe through iTunes. We do this every 2 weeks, or you can subscribe through YouTube. Where do you find us online, Crystal? Aside from those two places. You can find us on Twitter at Everything's Temp, and on Facebook at Everything's Temporary. You can also drop us a line if you would like us to talk about your book. Yes. At info@everythingstemporary. Calling all authors. info@everythingstemporary.com.
calling all authors, though. Everybody, thank you very much for taking the time to listen. I'm Andrew.
And I'm Crystal. Until next time, keep reading. Celtic mythology. Is it Celtic or Celtic?
It's Celtic.
It's whatever I want it to be.
It's actually pronounced Asian. Mythology. I don't know how it's spelled.
It's a silent C.
Celtic mythology.